Conversations and interviews are in the queue. Listen or join in. Here she is, P. Ross.
Greetings, 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 everyone. Thank you for tuning in to another show, Chat City with P. Ross. I am your host, P. Ross, and today I'm delighted and excited to have with me in the studio today Mr. Ray Collins, entrepreneur and social worker, evangelist Tameka Douglas. Welcome to the show. And I just want to make a correction. I mentioned on an earlier show that evangelist Tameka Douglas will be here every Thursday. That was incorrect. She'll be here every third Thursday, contributing to different subjects that we have. I appreciate her being taking on this spot with me, and her expertise, I'm sure, will help all of us in the world today. So thank you again, evangelist, social worker Tameka Douglas.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. So we got a couple of subjects we're dealing with today. One, life changes. And Mr. Ray Collins is here to share some of his life experiences with us before entrepreneurship. But we're going to get into, what he does now. And we're also going to talk about bullying. I talked with the evangelist, and I'm like, hey, what's a good subject that we can talk about on next time when you're here? She said, why not bullying? I'm like, okay, because I have experienced that. I don't know if you have, Ray. You may have been the one doing the bullying, huh? But, yeah, so we're going to touch on those subjects today. Before we do that, I want to just give a shout out to a couple of police officers in Sanford, North Carolina. And I tell you why, because when I left the show on last week, I had an ordeal. Let me tell you. I got halfway to my home mark, and I stopped at a local store. There was about 15 minutes before closing. I went in there, well, maybe 20 minutes. And so the cashier was talking to me. I got distracted, left my phone on the counter, left the store, decided to go to a drive-through. I discovered then I didn't have my phone. So I had to turn back around, try to get there in time before the store closed, where I missed getting in. So I had to wait. And at the time I had my car running. And when I decided, okay, I better park the car in a parking space and turn the car off, it died on me. And so here I am without my phone because the people was not coming up to the door. And I felt helpless and could not remember a single phone number. Is that terrible or what? I mean, there was a time we had to remember phone numbers, but I could not remember anybody's phone number to call and say, hey, I need help. So the police came and they helped me, and I just want to say thank you. I forgot those officers' name, but they stayed with me the whole time, and I told them I would give them a shout out on the radio. So if you're listening, thank you again for all of your help and all of your patience with me. Okay. Going into our discussion now. When we look at things that are happening in the world today, we see a lot of people that decide to go into entrepreneurship. Mr. Collins, I met one day. He was on the side of the road with a tent and a bunch of products under his tent. At that particular time, I was looking for a gift for someone. And so I just decided to stop there to see what he had. And from there, he had some great items, but he was already packing. Do you remember that, Mr. Collins? So he was already packing it away, but he was kind enough to let me browse through what he had, even though I could tell he was ready to go. And so from there, we just, I drummed up small conversation with him. And later on, we connected on a project that I think involved some family members of his. Was that correct? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So we connected on that. And from there, I got to know a little bit more about him. He was just open about his story. And I'm like, wow, this story needs to be heard. One, I marvel at the fact of anybody that decides to open their own business. I wish that was something I had the mindset to do as a younger person. But hey, here I am now, and I'm doing what I do. But with Mr. Collins, he began sharing some of the things he's done and what he does. And so I was like, wow, yeah, that's good. before we get into his backstory, let's talk about what he does now. Tell us a little bit about your businesses, Mr. Collins.
I mean, basically, I sell a little everything. I sell basically like clothing, health products, basically saying clothing, health products.
Okay. And what made you decide on that merchandise?
I mean, first I started with body oils and started with burning oils. That's what I first started with. Started that 18 years ago.
Okay. And okay, so why that product?
Because at the time I was fresh out of prison, and I was determined I wasn't going back selling drugs anymore. I should sell drugs.
Oh, okay.
So I said, you know what? I'm never going to sell drugs again, so I got to find something. So I worked the job. I was making $6 an hour. And when I got paid, I said, man, I don't got no money left. I had $20 in my pocket. And I was like, I went to this flea market, and I seen this lady selling some oils. And I asked, I said, how much I got to invest in to get in the same stuff? Because she had a lot of stuff set up. And she said, I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to sell you 20 bottles for them $20 you got. And you can sell it $5 a piece. And that's what made me start the oils, because that's all I had was $20. So those y'all saying you don't got no money to start a business, it don't matter what you got. You work what you got, and God will do the rest.
Okay.
But that's why I started doing the oils.
Okay. So you decided, hey, I was doing this life of bad stuff, crime, and I decided, okay, I'm not going to do it anymore. Oils was the first thing that came across your path.
I mean,
right?
that wasn't the first thing across my path, but that's the first thing, the honest thing came across.
Okay.
All kind of stuff came across my path, but I chose not to do that.
Okay. Awesome.
I was determined not going back to prison.
I'll give you a house of applause on that, sir. Okay, so you said all you had was $20.
$20.
Okay.
Left in my pocket. After I paid my bills, I had $20 left in my pocket.
Okay. And so tell us about from the time you went to the lady, bought the oils, and then what? What was your next move?
The next move was I was still working, making a job. I was making $6 an hour. And when I got paid, I said, man, I don't have no money. So I was already going to work every day, catching the bus, not used to that. I'm used to, I had to start, when I say start over fresh, I had to start over with the car license, clothes, everything, start over fresh. So me catching the bus, that was something new to me. And God was putting my pride to the side, saying, you know what, I'm going to make you walk to the bus station. I'm going to make you go to work, get up extra early, because I want you to start all over, everything fresh. So when I got paid, I was like, man, I got to do something better than this. $20 ain't enough. So you know the enemy going to come, go out there and get you a pack, make you about $50,000 right quick, and you good. But that's the enemy. So I was determined. I said, what? I'm going to let you work this out. So that's how I started.
Okay, so when you say enemy, you're referring to the devil, right?
Devil.
For those that just clueless on what you're talking about when you say the enemy. Okay, so we take it that you are a Christian.
I'm a believer.
A believer.
I'm
okay.
a man, you know what I'm saying, trying to live right.
Okay, a believer in what's your higher entity?
I'm just a spiritual guy trying to live right.
Okay, all right. Okay, so, all right, so, where did so you worked the $6 an hour, and then you did the oils. When did that oil start surpassing the $6 an hour?
Because the supervisor, he would watch me every day. He said, you come to work every day. You on time. You supposed to be at 6 o'clock in the morning. You at 5 o'clock in the morning every morning. He said, you got people been here for 20 years. You putting out more work than what they doing. And at the time, it was called Mars Furniture in High Point, North Carolina. Okay. Building furniture and stuff and cabinets. So he said, I've been watching you. He said, we got a new building that's going to be open up in the next 2 months. So if you like to, if you can catch on, we can change you from making $6 an hour to $12 an hour. And he said, if you think you do that, we're going to change it to $12 an hour. So at the time, I was making that $6. I told her, I said, look, he said, I'm going to give you 2 months. I said, nah, give me a week. If I learn this in a week, that's when you change my pay. He said, yeah, I could do that. So that next week, I've mastered it. Started making $12 an hour. So I started doing not just body oils, I was getting burner oils. Then I started buying tennis shoes, started buying clothes. And then on payday, I'm started making $200-$300 on a break.
Okay.
It started like that.
All right. Okay. So so you're now up to $12 an hour, and you're still doing you're doing your oils, you're doing your your tennis shoes, and you just started adding other stuff in from there.
Started adding stuff in, and at the time, I was still walking to work. I still didn't have a car because I had to start all over fresh. So not only that, I had a nephew that I raised from 13 till he graduated. So I promised him, he said, once I get into a house, I'll go ahead and let him stay with me. So at the time, if I'm fresh out of prison, I don't got nowhere to stay. So I stayed with my aunt for a little while. So I told her to give me 5 months. But at 5 months, any type of 5 weeks. So with that 5 weeks, I found me a place. So I got my nephew. So making sure every night that I'm doing pray, he read the Bible. We rotate. I read the Bible. He do the pray until he graduated high school. So I figured that first year, I went ahead and invested in a car, got my license. Then it started building up more and more. And then I took that next year, took a vacation, and I got fired on my vacation when I came back.
You got fired after you got back from vacation?
Yeah. So God was already preparing me already for my business because I was determined because that was, all kind of benefits. So he would let me know already that I grew the job. He just wanted to test my faith, see was I going to do it. To make that $6 an hour, most people say, nah, I'm not going to make no $6 an hour. But if you in prison, you making 75 cents a day. If I could do that, who am I to say I can't make $6 an hour? So I put my pride aside and God did the rest.
Okay. That's good, Ray. So let me ask you this. If you don't mind sharing with our audience, let's go back to your childhood a little bit. What was that like for you?
It wasn't good. You know what I'm saying? I was probably homeless. And I was put out early age, 16. So I walked the street. Then I started, that's how I got into selling the drugs.
Okay.
Trying to survive.
All right. Okay. So you was basically doing what you felt like you had to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then what was your teenage years like? Or was that in your teens?
Selling drugs. Yeah.
Okay. And then if you don't mind us asking, what happened? What moment did you end up in prison?
I probably, when I got about maybe 20, 22, got busted, went to prison, got out, and did it again. Was good for about a year or two. Went back out, sold drugs again. Went back to prison twice. That second time, that's what made it draw. So you know what? I'm determined. I'm not gonna go out and sell any drugs. I said the same way the devil blessed me, God blessed me 10 times more.
Amen to that. You get powerful applause on that one, sir. Looking at the statistics, so many of our African American men have decided to turn to that way of life. I mean, it's depressing sometimes, but my question is, why not go to the supermarket or McDonald's and get a job from there? Why the streets and doing this?
Because at the time, sometimes you think the street will show you love when that's all, fantasy. Sometimes you be around certain friends, you see they got all the jewelry, they got all the shoes, they got the nice cars. So when you see all of that, you're like, I want that too, especially like me. I mean, I can't talk about nobody else, I can speak about me. When I'm out there on the street and I don't know where to go, and I'm like staying at somebody's house too, they say, oh, you got to leave, or I'm sleeping on the street. So I'm like, I can't keep doing this. So, I mean, I went out there and just do what I thought was good for me.
Did you try to apply for a regular job?
I mean, I worked a regular job one time.
I mean, at the time when you were going through the turmoil on the streets, I mean.
Because right now, the drugs, you make so much money so quick, and you ain't used to that. And you ain't used to having nothing. And then when you get something like make $1,000, $2,000 in a day, when you're a kid, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Again, thank you for sharing this story with us. One of the reasons why I wanted you to come to the show too, we've got so many people in our communities that are just not doing the right thing. I'm saying across America, not just one. And we want to do what we can to make it better. But I'm like, I don't know the streets, and there's so many that don't know. I feel like we don't know how to go to the person and say, don't do this anymore. We have not been there, or what can we do to help you to take a better step than what you're taking? Because I don't know if anybody ever thinks what happens to the person on the other side that they're selling to, or they choose to You see what I'm saying? Does that ever cross anybody's mind when they're selling?
When it crossed the mind, the ones that selling the drugs.
Like, what happens to the person that they're selling to?
I mean, at the time, you're not thinking about that because you think about, man, they got that money. You just chasing that dollar. It's just like, I mean, somebody drinking, they want that drink, and that's like addiction. Mm-hmm. So when they drink, they say it become a habit. It's like when you chasing that money, it just become a habit. You don't looking at, oh, it's gonna hurt them because they looking like they happy. They just want to fix. So at the time, you ain't thinking about that. Now, I mean, ask God to forgive me every day, and I continue to say, look, it's a lot of damage because a lot of people have died. Some people have sick, went crazy, you know what I'm saying, different things. And some people are doing good. But all I can do is say, ask God to forgive me for what I've done in the past.
Mm-hmm. And I do believe he has.
Mm.
Yep.
And I've been 19 years ago.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I'm glad you're here to tell about it today.
Yeah.
If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Chat City with P. Ross. We have Mr. Ray Collins, who is an entrepreneur and has made some great life changes, and evangelist social worker Tameka Douglas, who will be discussing bullying. Right now, we're discussing with Ray some of the life changes he made. He came from a life of being on the streets and doing the wrong thing. And he's just turned his life around tremendously after 19 years and have decided to do some right things. And he's headed in the right direction. He's been successful in running a couple of successful businesses. So he's here to chat with us today. One of the things we hope that this show does is help change different cities, communities, anybody that's listening to this show, or just share the show with someone that you think may need a life change, because Ray is certainly a testimony to that. Sometimes we need somebody to look up to, or somebody to kind of lead and guide us out of the darkness and into the light. And Ray's testimony, I feel, could do that for some, or many, I should say. Let me change that from some to many. All right. And again, thank you, Ray, for coming to the show.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. So you went from hustling on the streets to hustling for yourself. Mm-hmm. Tell us about, you told us you started with body oils and things of that nature. You now have the Scented House. Mm-hmm. And tell us a little bit about that business and how you got started there.
I got started basically, selling out the trunk. That's how most people always start, selling out the trunk. Mm-hmm. You pull up in the neighborhood just like the ice cream man. When they see Ray, they say, there go the pocketbook man, there go hustle man, there go oil man. I had all kind of names. I mean, everything you needed, basically, I had it in that truck, in that van. Uh-huh. So it started like that for a long time. And basically, that's how I started, And then I started looking for a building. Then I was like, I had a couple of buildings. And just started putting stuff in the building and just doing it like that.
Okay. All right. So what was your sales approach to everybody that you tried to sell something to? Did you have a special technique that you used?
It's depending on the customer, depending on what they're looking for. It might be shoes, it might be pocketbook. But most time, I don't have to say nothing. They come to me. They flagging me down. Saying, there go Ray. They say, you see Ray, make sure you stop and tell him come to my house. Tell him I need some oils. I'm out of my oils. Or I need some tennis shoes. It's time for school. Uh-huh. I need this outfit. So most of the time they flagging me down.
Okay. Now, in my duration of time of knowing Mr. Collins, one time I got a phone call and it was him. and where you at, Ray? Well, I think he was in Oklahoma or somewhere far away, selling. And I'm like, wow. So you traveled all the way out to what city? What state was that?
It depends. I might be in Florida. I might be in Chicago. Everywhere, from Chicago to Philadelphia to Green Bay, because I sell T-shirts also, so I go all over sell T-shirts. Tell us
a little bit about your T-shirt business, because I think at the time that you called me, you said you were, you decided to go to a city where some team had just won a championship game or something.
Yeah,
and you packed up, and you packed up and you left and you hit that city like at the pop of your fingers.
Yeah, because that was the Super Bowl when they won Tom Brady won the Super Bowl.
Oh, okay.
So once you look at the game, you see, you go down. I go down like a week ahead of time where they playing the game. So I sell T-shirts. I set up like tents. I might put up 2-3 tents, pay people 20% whatever they sell, and I got my own tent. And then say you hoping to win, whoever win the championship, I got somebody who do my artwork. So I go and have them printing up the championship shirts, have that shipped out, and then we stayed about another week, do championship shirts.
Okay. So you have employees with you when you travel like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I know that you also reach back into the community and try to help others. Tell us a little bit about that, sir.
I mean, basically, like, somebody might be hungry, you need food, go out there, you know what I'm saying, help them out with food. When I was in Atlanta, I stayed in Atlanta for 3 years. I used to do it here too, but it's more people in Atlanta, so I feel like maybe 100 to 200 people, homeless people, and talk to them, let them know that they might be down in their luck. They might, I'm homeless, I'm a bum. I'm like, no, you're not a bum, you're just down in your luck. So just give them some encouraging words, let them know that you might be down right now, but you ain't gonna be down forever. Just give them that encouraging words that we all need.
Amen to that. If you're listening, I hope this is strengthening you. In a lot of ways it has me. You know, it compels you to want to get out and do more and do better. What was your most successful career path, Ray?
Today, because I'm still living, that's the most successful thing, because I could have been dead and gone a long time ago. So just being here, just being alive, that's the most successful for me. Okay.
Now, I listened to you and another gentleman talk about your stories while you were incarcerated. And you mentioned that you got a lot of respect. Do you care to share that information as to why?
I mean, because you carry yourself right. I mean, you got God in you, period. No matter how much you do wrong, if you still treat people right, you know what I'm saying, and you got people praying for you, good gonna follow you anywhere you go.
Okay. All right. If you are just tuning in, you're listening to Chat City with P. Ross. We are talking life changes with Mr. Ray Collins. He has a success story. He came from a life off the streets and turned all of that around into something positive. We're also going to be discussing bullying with evangelist Tameka Douglas, who is a social worker. All right. What were some of your biggest who were some of your biggest influences when you were younger, Ray? And who were some of your biggest influences now?
My biggest influence was my dad, J.C. Huff. He was a hustler. He went out every day. When we didn't see no way, he made a way. So that's why I guess I got my hustle from him, seeing that drive that every morning he out there making something happen. So he sold a little everything too. So my pops.
All right, big shout, big ups to your pop. Now, do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I have a sister and a brother on my mama's side, and on my father's side, I got 27 brothers and sisters on my father's side.
Say that again.
My mother's side is 3 of us. Me, I got a sister and a brother. But on my father's side, is 27 of us.
Okay, wow. What was that like?
I mean,
being raised in a big family, I should ask.
We weren't raised together. It was just that on my father's side. Only ones raised together was me, my sister, and brother.
Okay. You all pretty close?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Tell us what some of your scariest moments were. I would say back then, and do you have any now?
Basically, when you're in the drug game, you might be in certain areas when you go pick up. Sometimes some things go wrong. You got to handle your business. Sometimes you don't. Some things you got to just take care of your business. Sometimes some things you don't want to do, but sometimes you be like, I'm gonna get out of this situation. But God, He make a way.
Okay. Tell us, when you said you went into prison one time, you came out and then you went back in. What was the thought? What was on your mind when they cuffed you to take you back in?
The second time? The second time I turned myself in, because the first time I went and I got out. And the second time I was on probation, so I violated. So I ran to California for 7 years. So after them 7 years I was in California, I decided, to come home to my brother, my oldest brother's funeral, because he was dying. So they said, you know what, you got to come on home because your brother dying. And that was around by 9/11 when I said, I'm going to get on that plane because you already know what happened. So I had to get on the bus. So it took about 2.5 days to get home. So at the time when I was sitting on the bus, it was a lady staring at me on the bus. And I'm like, what's the lady staring at me for? Because I know I'm on the run. So at the time, she was like, what's your name? So I gave her a fake name. So about 10 minutes later, she came back to me. She was sitting, asking me questions again. She's like, what is your name? I said, I just told you, I gave you my name. She said, look, I don't know where you coming from, but wherever you leaving from, you're not going back. And she said, you're going to go through a lot of pain. You're going to go through a lot of suffering. I'm like, who this lady? Who? She don't even know me. So at the time, she was like, yeah, you're going to go through a lot of suffering. You're going to go through a lot of pain. And I'm telling you now, wherever you're leaving from, you're not going back. And at the time, I'm like, this lady, she'll know what she's talking about because everything I own is back in California. So at the time, I had a girlfriend there. I said, I know I ain't leaving her, so I'm going back. So when I got back to North Carolina, they said your brother already died. So we already getting ready for the funeral and everything. A week later, I'm about to get back, and my sister died. So we getting ready for another funeral. So at the time, I'm like, man, my brother dead, my sister dead. Then I got a note that my brother's wife and they were staying in our place at the time. So they called me and said, look, tell Ray that the guy he was training, because I used to train people how to go door-to-door sales. I train people how to do sales. The guy was training, sleeping with your girlfriend in your house. So at the time, I'm like, nah, I got my brother dead, my sister dead, and the woman I supposed to love, she didn't cheat on me. I can't do nothing from North Carolina to California. So now that's when I got on my knees and I started praying. And I remember the same thing the lady told me. She said, whatever you're going through, you're going to go through some pain and suffering. She said, you're going to be hurting. She said, you're going to go through a lot. But she said, she kept telling me you're a leader. You're not no follower. I always been know I'm a leader. But she kept saying, you're just going to go through a lot. God got something for you. And everything that she said on that bus, you're not going back. I never went back to California. The pain and stuff I went through a lot. And then for knowing that you got a brother that died, then a week later your sister died, then the woman you supposed to love, she's cheating on you. Then you going through all this one time. So when I got on my knees and I started praying, I surrendered. I said, God, whatever you want me to do, I'm ready. I surrender. So I prayed for about a whole hour. The pain that was in my heart was so tough that I couldn't bear it no more. Because he did say, I won't put too much you could bear. So I started praying. When I got off my knees, that pain was gone. It was still there, but it was enough I could bear.
Okay,
so from then, that's when God was dealing with me from that moment. And he was like, you know what? A week later, I said, I'm going back to California. A week turned into 2 months, 3 months. And then God said, you know what? I want you to turn yourself in. I'm like, nah, I ain't turning myself in. He's like, I need you to turn yourself in. I said, I ain't hearing you right. So about 4 months came, then I said, you know what? I'm going to turn myself in. Because he was telling me, I want you to start all over fresh. He said, everything you own in California, I don't want you to have none of that. I want you to, from the clothes to the license to the car, everything. Because when you're on the run, you can't go get your license because you're on the run. So I turned myself in, went to the courthouse. I said, look, I'm turning myself in. I got a warrant for my arrest. Been 7 years. They said, we don't have no warrant for you. I said, well, you need to look a little further because I walk out of here, I ain't coming back. So they said, well, go to the courthouse. I go to the courthouse. They didn't find nothing. Then they told me the same thing. So they said, well, go to the probation office. I went to 3 different places. So I went to the probation office and they digged for it. They found it. Oh, yeah, we do see it. So they put me down. So I did 2 years. I got out. And that's how, you already know the first part when I went to High Point, started working after that.
Wow. Incredible story. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Chat City with P. Ross. We're talking to Mr. Ray Collins, who is a life changer with a great testimony. And we're going to discuss bullying with evangelist / a social worker, Tameka Douglas. Tameka, I want you, we were talking about bullying just briefly earlier when we were discussing a topic. And as I mentioned to you, I have been bullied in the workplace. Now, usually when you hear the word bullying, I think about somebody in your childhood torturing you. But I find this in the workplace too. Let's talk on that today.
Sure. And I think it's a wonderful topic to talk. And this is Bullying Awareness Month. And a lot of times when we think about bullying, we tend to just think childhood bullying, the middle school the middle schooler who runs up to you and takes your money, or says to you, "Bring me $10 tomorrow." However, bullying impacts adults as well, and it does certainly take place in the workplace. And so when you and I talked a little bit about it, and you mentioned workplace bullying, I wasn't surprised at all, because people are faced with it, and it comes in many forms. Oftentimes it starts out with control, trying to impart fear in people, and two of the most who are bullied in the workplace, unfortunately, are women and people of color.
Wow.
Women tend to face bullying quite a bit when they are in fields or arenas which are male dominated, and that can sometimes be your sales fields. Of course, another field that is pretty much male dominated is the aviation arena. That's really dominated by a lot of men, of course. And in various fields, I think we all know the ones that are pretty much male heavy, and women tend to face bullying in that regard in the workplace. And also when women are in leadership roles and they have to supervise men, they oftentimes face bullying in that regard as well. And again, it starts out a lot of times with control and trying to put fear in people. Sometimes you see it from supervisors when it comes to their, those who are under them. They tend to sometimes bully in ways that we don't know it's bullying, and it comes in forms of emails. It can come in different forms in the workplace. So I think it's a very prevalent topic in terms of workplace bullying, because it does impact people. I think that what we have to be mindful of is that you've got to make sure that you just don't let it ride. One time someone had said to me that they had been bullied in the workplace for over 20 years. That's 20 years way too long. It's not something that has to be tolerated in the workplace, whether you are a person in leadership or you're someone who is not in leadership.
May I stop you right there?
Absolutely.
Okay, so at the time that I was working for a major employer in my local city, I made my supervisors aware of what was happening. And they told me keep documenting. I did everything they asked me to do, to no satisfaction. The bullying continued. So much so that I decided to go outside of the workplace and go to the EEOC. And I got nothing, pretty much. So how do we stop it in the workplace? Because I don't know if it was just that particular employer, I mean, to me, there was like no laws. I didn't fit under any categories when I went to the EEOC. And I just didn't fit. They didn't have anything for bullying.
And you went through the channels at your workplace, through HR and all of that.
I did.
And I'm finding that when people talk about it, it is based on your organization that you work for. Some places are not going to tolerate it. Then you have those places who will, in fact, say document, and you'll go through all those channels, and the person who is targeted inevitably ends up leaving. And they're great workers, but it's a situation where they just feel overpowered by the person that's bullying them, overpowered by human resources, who in some cases don't do a lot about it. So in cases like that, it's just unfortunate, because it's based on where you work and what their rules and regulations are based upon, as it relates to workplace harassment and bullying. And that in your situation, it's a very unfortunate thing, because something should have been done, especially if you had it documented and you had proof of what was taking place. People now are getting to the point where when they're in meetings and things of that nature, and they feel as though they're being harassed by supervisors or harassed by other employees, now they're getting to the point where they're recording it and just being able to take it, to higher ups, so that they can let them know what's taking place and how it's impacting them. But again, to answer your question, it's unfortunate that based on the organization, there are some things that does not work in the favor of the victim of bullying.
Okay. What are some of the other forms of bullying?
That, like I said, that fear, retaliation can be a form of bullying. When you, in your case, when you went to HR, when that person, if it's a supervisor, you're going to the HR person about, or the HR representative about that, they can try to retaliate to, when it comes to your performance evaluations, and when it comes to certain things, workloads, in situations where you may have a job wherein your supervisor kind of controls your workload. They can retaliate in that regard, giving you more of a demanding workload than they would your other counterparts and your other colleagues. Again, making you fearful about coming to work, making work, not an environment that is not pleasant to be in. So those are some of the other things. So again, that control, that fear, and that use of retaliation are some of the main things that we see in workplace bullying.
Okay. Now, the other day, and you probably were going to touch on this. The other day, I saw, and I believe it was an old clip of Dr. Phil, and there was this lady on there, and she gave this just horrific story of her daughter. I think she was one of maybe 4 or 5 children. Her daughter committed suicide because of being bullied at school. Her peers made her feel very different, and no matter how much her mother tried to show her and console her and make her feel special, those people that bullied her seemed to have won, because she took her life at home on a special bench that she and her mom, or that her mother created for any of her kids to sit down and talk with them, talk out their issues and things like that. So let's talk about children and bullying, maybe at school or on the playground.
Sure. One of the things I would say, and that's why I think it's certainly appropriate to talk about this topic, not only in Bullying Awareness Month, but all the time, because about 2 in 9 children end up committing suicide as a result of bullying. I think we all have heard the many horrific stories about children as young as 8 and 9 years old, sometimes younger, who have been found in the home, hung, or whatever the case may be, or whatever form they used to commit suicide, because they were being bullied in school. And so it is certainly something that we see oftentimes right here in Wake County. Just a month ago, I think it was Wendell, a young man committed suicide. So we're seeing it far too often in our schools, wherein the children are that devastated, and suicide is impacting them in such a manner that they are taking their lives as a result of it. So again, about 2 in 9 children we see this in.
That's awful. So, I mean, does the bullying come from the parents? I mean, how does it start in the child to bully another?
That's a good question, P. Ross. I think it can come in a lot of different ways, and in that you ask that question, one of the things I want to say is that oftentimes it's who we look at as being the bully is not the bully. We tend to think it's little Joe, who may not be able to afford the expensive sneakers, that's walking around and that comes from a low economic neighborhood, who you think he's the bully. But we're seeing children who are coming from communities wherein they're coming from homes that have a multi-millionaire income, and they are bullying people. So I think we have to take the stigma away from who is actually doing the bullying, and know that we've got to be able to look into these children and to know that it's not just who we think, that those that are coming from environments that maybe their parents can't afford to send them to school with the latest clothing items, so they're just looking for somebody to retaliate against. So to answer your question, it could be any child. It could be that child who gets everything. It could be that child who doesn't get everything. It could be the child who comes from the home that has the mom and dad in the home. It could be the child who comes from the single parent home. And it's not to say that the child who may have a chaotic or a toxic home environment is going to school targeting their peers. Sometimes it's the child who's getting everything that's targeting their peers. So it's not coming from a particular demographic. It's just coming from different children in general. That's why I think it's so necessary to hold these conversations conversations, I think it's imperative that parents, teachers, mentors, mentees, those of us who engage the culture and engage people in the community, that we talk to these young people about bullying, not only what to do if they're bullied, but talk to them about the importance of not bullying children, and letting them know what can happen, like suicide, whenever they bully somebody.
So the adult in the workplace that, okay, is in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and when we're talking about age, if they are still bullying folks on the workplace or wherever, can we say that's a mental problem there, or what? What should, I mean, you would think if they were a bully at in their teenage years or as a youngster, that they would eventually grow out of it. I can't understand why we still have bullies at 60 years old. Can you explain that or help me understand why?
Yes, and although I think sometimes it may carry on from that, that behavior of a person who in middle school or high school or even college, or that person that didn't go to college, that may have been a bully or just had that bully mentality. Sometimes you have people in the workplace who weren't bullied. They could have been bullied in their earlier years, or in those years where they were going through grade school, and they weren't necessarily a bully back then, but the workplace brought out the bully in them. So in many cases, people who are sometimes targeted in the workplace and bullied, it could be a coworker who is jealous of you. They see you come in there and you have a lot to offer, or you come in and you're happy, and they're down and out, or they're just not happy about life, and so they target you because of that. Sometimes people, I know when I was in school, there were people who just didn't like people because they didn't like them. They didn't have a reason in the world not to like them, but they just didn't like that person. And so the same holds true in the workplace, where people sometimes begin to target others or bully them simply because they come in and they're happy. They're happy go lucky person. They just come in and do their job. They do it with excellence, and so they're targeted and bullied because of that, or they bring something to the table. So you have Sally Jane, and she comes into work and she has, she's in the meeting, she's able to speak up, she's able to offer the company something, she's excelling in the workplace. So then you may have Mary Jane, who's like, oh, she's performing better than me, or she's getting the attention from management, she's getting the promotion. So then you have Mary Jane, who begins to try to bully this lady who is excelling in the workplace, who's doing well, who's coming in with a positive attitude. So sometimes the work culture in and of itself, that competitiveness, and in many workplaces now where you have the performance evaluation, that you kind of have to compete in a sense, and most of these agencies, to try to work up to a certain point and to do well in these performance evaluations, and people know that. So you get people that become jealous, try to pull one another down. So then that bullying comes out. Hey, if I put fear in her, or if I you target her or make her uncomfortable about the work environment, then maybe she'll leave. So that's how that stuff comes about in the workplace. I believe it's not necessarily someone who was a bully in school. Sometimes just the culture of the work environment brings the bully out in people.
Good information. If you've been listening to us, this is Chat City with P. Ross. I'm your host, P. Ross, and we're talking to Mr. Ray Collins, who is a life changer, and evangelist Tameka Douglas, who is a social worker. We've been talking about life changes and bullying as our subjects. If you would like to call in and talk to our guest today, please feel free now at 919-899-9305. That's 919-899-9305. 9305. You're welcome to call in at this time. Evangelist Douglas, what else can you tell us about bullying?
I would just say, just knowing where it kind of comes from, and that it's not always the one who we think is being bullied. Also, in terms of the youth bullying, or the bullying that we see in children, it typically starts in that middle school age range, but now we're seeing it in elementary school, and in elementary school, it also is consistent of physical bullying now, where even in these elementary schools where they're putting hands on their peers. So in middle school, it is very, very prevalent. We all know that because you can begin to kind of come into yourself and going through puberty and all of that, and then you have all the issues that go on in sixth grade. And so we see it a lot in middle school. That's when it tends to peak. at its highest in middle school, but we're also seeing it in the elementary school as well. And when they come, those formative grades when they begin school. So knowing when it starts, making sure that we're talking about it, talking to children about it, and looking for the signs, because in many cases with the children who have committed suicide or those who are just being impacted by bullying, I think it's so important that we know, not only as parents, but as just caregivers, as aunties, as friends of the family, that we know the signs of it, which can be isolation. It can be just withdrawing yourself from others. Clothing items, sometimes you see little Johnny's coming home, clothes ripped, little bruises on little Johnny. Well, what happened to you? Well, I fell on the playground. And that may have happened, but just making sure that you're mindful of that, paying close attention to those signs, so that we know the signs of the children who are bullied. Because when you listen to a lot of the stories of the many situations where these children have committed suicide, oftentimes the parents are like, I didn't even know that she was being bullied. I didn't even know that he was being bullied. So making sure that we're attentive to the signs and communicating with the kids. Don't just let them walk in the door from school. Hey, how was your day today? It was good. And then they fly to the bedroom and they don't come back out, or they come back out and eat and they're on their phones while they're eating, and talk to them about their day. Hey, who are your friends? Do you have friends? And just kind of and asking questions wherein the answers are just not yes, no, maybe so, but asking questions where they have to really talk through their school day, and making sure that you also communicate with those teachers. And if there's a problem, let them know. Go to that school and say, hey, my child is saying this is happening. This child is saying something to him in a disrespected manner. This child put their hands on my child. Can we look into this? So talking to those principals and those teachers and those counselors and letting them know what your child is saying or what you're thinking could be going on, because sometimes the children, bullies put fear in kids. So sometimes they may not tell you what's going on. So you may have to go to that school, call that school and say, I kind of have a feeling that this is taking place. Can we just watch this? Can we watch them in the classroom? Can we watch little Johnny as he's interacting with little Mike, or Sally as she's interacting with Keisha? Can we kind of watch those, their interactions and their engagement? Because I think something may be going on. So we have to dig deeper, I believe, because now children are far more wise than I think they were when I was growing up in the 80s. We, a little more outgoing, and then you could kind of see it and put your hands on it. But now that they have these phones and all that, and time wouldn't even permit us to get into the cyberbullying, which is also something that is very, very prevalent. Children have committed themselves because of cyberbullying. Nobody put their hands on them, but it was what was out there on Facebook, or they're using Vine and Instagram and TikTok. And so cyberbullying, which is also very big. So I think communication is key, and paying close attention to our children, our youth.
So describe a little bit more for us, if you will, what cyberbullying is.
Yeah, so cyberbullying is whenever the bullying that they experience at the bus stops, or perhaps in school, got the calling the names and all of that. It's that, but it's online, where this stuff is put out there on social media. And sometimes it has been situations wherein it's got that through text messaging, because they have phones now in kindergarten, unfortunately, because they don't need them that early on, but they have the phones so early. And so it can start out with texting, and it just flies out there, and stuff is, now we're in a day of screenshotting. So it pictures and all that. So little Kiana decides she wants to take a picture of her little breasts and send it to her, who she thinks is her boyfriend. So then he sends it to the football team, and it gets around, and people are calling her names, and they're putting it out there on social media. So it's all over the place now. That's a form of cyberbullying. Or just, we're going to beat you down in school tomorrow, tweeting that stuff. Now they're doing videos on TikTok, which also is something that is a form of bullying whenever it's targeting someone else. So that's really what cyberbullying is. It's what we would see in the school setting or in the neighborhood at the bus stop, but it's online, where these kids are, because they care so much about what others think about them and what their peers think and what their peers are saying. So when they know that it's out there on these social media platforms, it becomes so they can't take that kind of pain and that kind of attention that's really towards them. And so it becomes a form of bullying, and they just they're like, oh my goodness, then you mean to tell me he sent it to the football team? Or they're talking about me online and they're calling me names and making threats. And so that's in overall what cyberbullying looks like.
Okay, so boys and girls, please don't set yourself up for cyberbullying. Okay, do not send out pictures of yourself, your private parts, to anybody. Don't set yourself up. That's one form of bully prevention. That's a little advice from me. All right, you're listening to Chat City with P. Ross on Oak 93.5 FM, WRLY Raleigh. We've been talking to the great evangelist Tameka Douglas, who also does work in social work. And we have Mr. Ray Collins, who made some great life changes and shared his story with us. Mr. Collins, back to you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so you talked about life on the streets. You chose to sell drugs. You turned away out of that lifestyle and started making a better lifestyle for yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
We have so many people today that are, like we said earlier, are just choosing that other lifestyle that's not so great, and that also brings harm to others, whether they realize it or not. Being that you're a changed man now, what words of advice do you have for those that may be listening that are in the what I call street life? What words of advice do you have for them right now to do something different?
First, I want to say, sometimes you can be selling drugs all your life, and that's all you know. Like me, if I known back then what I know now, I would never would have sold drugs. If I known that I could take some incense and sell it, some oil, some clothes, and do the same thing. See, the devil got a way to trick you up. So he make it seem like this is good, but it really is bad. He make you think the streets is going to show you love, but ain't nothing but the enemy setting you up for failure. So my advice is to the ones who's in prison, just getting out, saying they're going to do good, do the prison talk, or I'm not going to sell no more, I'm not going to do this. When you get around your friends, so-called friends, you got to just be to yourself. Because sometimes if you weak and you ain't strong enough, you can say, I'm not going to sell anything. When your girlfriend or your baby mama getting on your nerves saying, we need some money, we need this, and you looking for a job, and 9 times out of 10, the way the system set up for us anyway is for failure. When you got a felony, you can't get no job. You can't find a good job anyway. And you got people all in your ear. So my advice is, God bless everybody with a gift to make more room enough to have your own business, to do your own stuff. So you might be a mechanic. You might be good in cooking. You might be good in sales. Whatever that advice is, you got a gift in. I'm telling you, God will make more room enough to do it. You just got to step out on faith. Like me, I didn't know I was going to be selling oils and clothes and all kind of stuff. Didn't know that God going to start me off with $20, the minimum. That's why I ask people, what is your gift? And some people, 50, 60, 70, don't even know what their gift is. And I tell them all day long, pray about it. And let God use it. It ain't just for the ones who's selling drugs. It's the ones out there in the street. It's people sitting at home working a 9 to 5 every day, struggling, don't know how they're going to get their bills paid, don't know how they're going to get gas put in the car, don't know how they're going to get this, they're going to get the light bill cut off, the lights cut off. They don't know. So the whole time you might have products sitting in your house. It's money. You got clothes, you got shoes sitting in your house, you got a yard sale.
So let's go back to when you say gift. People may not understand what you mean by gift if they're not spiritual. So I think most people with a spiritual with spiritual background may understand gift more. But what is your passion? What are the things that you like to do? Take that and make it work for you. You don't have to work for anybody else. Even if you don't, like he said, like cooking or whatever that you love to do the most, take that and make it make money for you. You don't have to go punch anybody's clock.
That's right.
You can start your own.
That's right.
So, yeah.
And another thing is that if you step out on faith, God will do the rest. Like I say, you go to work every single day, working 9 to 5. You oversleep, you break your neck to go make that $300 a week, $400 a week, whatever it may be. And knowing that you know you tired, you go to work, you don't even like it, but you know you got to pay your bills. So that same energy you got, if you can give the system 40 hours a week, you can at least invest 20 hours a week for yourself. When you get off that job, whatever it may be, you say, I'm going to take 20 hours a week, invest in my business. You said, well, I don't know what my business is. I don't know what I'm good at. Whatever you know that you're good at, that's your gift. Whatever you know that you like doing, that's your gift. Whatever that God put in your heart and put down your path, telling you, you step on faith and do it. Right now, people going to work right now is struggling right now. Don't even know how they're going to get gas to get to work. But right now, when God, that gift is sitting inside you, the devil put fear in you. And that's what stopped a whole lot of people, fear. Well, if I work this job right here, this is guaranteed. But this right here, you can work your business and guarantee to make that same thing you're making in a week, you can make in one day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my main message, is to not only the lost in the street, but everybody else is working a 9 to 5 too.
That's right. That's good. Okay. All right. The words of the changed man, Mr. Ray Collins, entrepreneur. All right. We've also been talking about bullying with evangelist Tameka Douglas. We're getting to the close of our show. And Ms. Douglas mentioned that this is, what is it, bullying month?
Bullying Awareness Month.
Bullying Awareness Month. Not bullying month. Don't go out there bullying anybody. But Bullying Awareness Month. Tell us more about that, evangelist, please.
Just be, of course, you know, being that it's Bullying Awareness Month, we want to be aware that bullying exists, of course, but I don't limit it to 1 month, because we don't hear about children who are committing suicide in just 1 month. I would say at least once a month we hear stories across this country about children who have committed suicide as a result of bullying. So I think that is so important that we are all mindful of what's taking place. Those children who we can touch, the children who are in our lives, talking to them about bullying, whether they are, you know, the bully or the person being bullied, making sure that they know what they can do if of course they are being bullied by someone, and then encouraging those who have the propensity to be a bully, encouraging them not to do that. And oftentimes, and I'm so intrigued by Mr. Collins' story here. I tell you, it's just been amazing, his story. But even in his, like how he's talking, he's not a bully, but how he's talking about just the gifts and what he's done in terms of entrepreneurship. When you talk to children who are bullies and who are taking all that energy that it takes to make somebody's life miserable, and just the turmoil that they can tend to cause, oftentimes you talk to those kids. I've talked to children before who were bullies and who were kids that were stronger and more popular than their peers and that tended to be bullies, and you talk to them, they have so many gifts and talents, and they are the types that could be young entrepreneurs and doing some of the things that he's even mentioned today that he's doing. So talking to them about channeling that energy to do something else. Those children, when you bring them to the table and talk to them, and why did you do that? Why did you beat that little girl up? Or why did you beat that boy up? And then you talk to them and find out that how strong they are and the wisdom that they have at a young age, you can begin to see the gifts and talents that they have on the inside. So talking to them about other things they can be doing to pursue greatness in life other than being a bully.
Amen. All right. You heard that here on Oak 93.5 from the great evangelist Tameka Douglas. Great words of wisdom. All right, Mr. Collins, I'm going to let you have the last few minutes here. Just because, again, like evangelist here, I'm intrigued by your story. There's so much bad out in the world today, and you're one of those ones that you made a choice to do differently. I know you gave us some great advice, or gave those that may be listening some great advice, ones that may have just been coming out of prison or that are on the streets now. Is there anything that we missed that you feel like you should say this evening before we close, real quickly?
One thing, too, like everybody like to do a challenge, and they say you go on social media, they like to do the water challenge. They do all kind of challenge. Now, I'm here to challenge all of y'all that's listening, and y'all need to share this to all your friends. I'm going to challenge all y'all to step out on faith and start your own business. I don't care what it may be, what you have. Don't even worry about what you don't have. Just worry about what you got. I challenge everybody right now to, even if it ain't but working on cars, if it ain't but landscaping, if it ain't but cooking, if it ain't but whatever may be, sales, I challenge everybody right now today to start your own business in something, even down to your kids. Start your own business doing something. I guarantee you'll be out that bondage. And I challenge that right now.
All right. That's a great challenge. All right. This concludes our show. You've been listening to Chat City with P. Ross on Oak 93.5 FM, WRLY Raleigh. Please listen again next Thursday or each Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you and have a great and blessed week.